Hi, this is Simon Upstell and welcome to another tutorial for Resolve Fusion, and today we're going to be taking a look at this dramatic decloak effect. Now, although this looks like a 3D effect, what it actually is a 2D composite based on a multipass 3D render. And there's more information on this technique in my magical transform tutorial, to which I'll put a link in the description. So let's take a look at this one. Okay, so here we are in Resolve. I'm in the Media tab and I'm going to bring in my three assets, drag them in like that. So this is just a quick little scene that I've made in Blender and rendered out as three different passes. And in the case of the model pass, I've rendered out the position data as well as the RGBA. And that will become obvious later on. And if you want more information on that, do look at my magical transform tutorial, which covers more of the same ground. And then I'm going to right click and choose new Fusion composition, and let's call it Decloak tutorial. 5 seconds is good, frame rate of 24 is fine. Okay, so create, and let's now double click that to come into Fusion. Let's click on the media pool and let's grab those three assets that we've brought in and bring them into Fusion like this. I should just point out here that although I will be using an animated image sequence, what I will be giving you is a still frame of each asset rather than the whole thing, but otherwise everything is the same. I'm going to delete those merges. Now, if you look over here, we've got a floor, we've got a model, and we've got a shadow. So let's just rename these. This top one here, F2, call it floor. This one, call it model, and this one, call it shadow. So let's first of all put the floor down at the bottom there. Let's merge the shadow over the floor, and then let's merge the model over the top of that. And let's take a look at what we've got. Now, you'll notice that although the floor and the shadow come in okay, the model is a bit different because it's a multi-layer OpenEXR. So if we look at the channels for the floor, we've just got red, green, blue, and alpha, and that's fine. But if we look at the channels for the model here, there's nothing in them. So what we need to do is populate these channels. So first of all, we want to use the combined red, green, and blue in these top slots, and the alpha in that slot there. And then what we're going to do is come down to the position. And what I've done is I've rendered out this scene with XYZ position. So let's enable those for the X, Y, and Z. Scroll down. So we've got the view layer position, X, Y, and Z in the X, Y, and Z position slots. So good. Let me just disable our media pool view there. Now, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to add, just to make this look correct, we're just going to add a gamut tool like that and pipe that into there. And then let's switch the output space to Rec 709 or whatever you want, but I'm going to go with Rec 709. So now we're getting this, and that's looking much more like it should look because we're converting out of linear space to Rec 709. Lots of other ways you can do this. I'm just going to go with this because it's simpler for the purposes of this tutorial. And you'll probably want to pipe that out into your media out. So what we're going to do first of all is we're going to use a macro that I've created for you. So Shift Spacebar, RemapNormalise, bring that in. And then let's take the model output into the input for this. And let's just take a look at what we've got. So what this does, I'm just going to adjust that offset value. You can see we're getting a wipe based on the X position of the 3D scene. If we chose the Y position instead, and I adjust the offset, you'll see we're getting this front back wipe. And if I choose the Z position, we'll get an up down wipe like that. And we're remapping the values of the position channel, which are very considerable. We're remapping them to the 0 to 1 range. And we need it at 0 to 1 range because we want to actually be able to use this as a mask for various processes. So the first thing I want to do is I want to add a brightness contrast after this. And I want to make sure to turn on alpha like that. Let's set the low value to 0.49 and the high value to 0.51. And then let's take a look at that. And this should be a little bit more obvious. So now you can see we've got a much more pronounced edge, and you can see how this is going to work. We've got a really nice reveal there of the X position. So let me talk very quickly about these near and far values. I've set them up to be fairly optimal for this particular scene, but they could be very different. So I'm just going to quickly show you what I mean by adding a channel booleans there. I'm going to take the model output into it, and let's just copy the X position into that red channel there. Let's take a look at it, and you can see that everything is that's red has got the X position value. Now if you look down here at the numbers while I hover, look at the red value, and you can see the red value of this, which is the part of the model that's nearest to the camera, has a value of roughly 2.5. This over here, which is the farthest away, has a value of 2. So if we come back to our remap and we set those values up exactly, so negative 2.5 for the near and the far was 2. So now we've mapped the front and back position values of the model precisely to that 0 to 1 range, and that's going to be much more manageable. So that's how you can verify the position values of your render and just plug them into the macro quite simply. So let's just delete that. We don't need that anymore. What we can do now is set up an animation. I'm going to come to 10 frames. So in actual fact, what I want to do is I actually want to go the other way with my animation. So I'm going to swap these two values around. So I'm going to have 2 for the near and negative 2.5 for the far. And now, so we're at frame 10. Let's keyframe the offset at the point we just can't see anything. Let's come forward to, I don't know, 85, and let's animate that offset all the way till we are seeing the full model. So now we're getting this nice little reveal like that. Okay, so now what we can do is we can use this brightness and contrast as the effect mask for this merge here. So let's take the brightness contrast and add it to the effect mask input of the merge. And then if we run our scene, you can see we're getting our nice reveal like that. So I want to keyframe the opacity of the shadow. So I'm going to come to the merge where the shadow is being merged over the floor, come to frame 10 and set a keyframe for the blend and set that down to 0. Come forward to where we were, frame 85, set that blend value all the way up. And now in actual fact, it would be probably a lot better to just mask this, but that's a little bit too elaborate for this tutorial. So we're going to go with just a straight fade up of the shadow underneath. Now what I want to do is to create the fancy edge. That's going to sell the effect a little bit better. So let's now take this brightness contrast and copy and paste it. And let's take our normalized output into the new brightness contrast. And let's set the low to be 0.5 and the high to be 0.52 for this one. Then what we want to do is we want to invert it. So let's use the invert color tool and let's make sure to invert the alpha as well. So now we're getting the opposite like that. And what we're then going to do is we're going to add a custom tool and pipe this brightness contrast into the second input of the custom tool. Let's take a look at the custom tool. We're going to come to channels and we're going to type min, open brackets, C1, comma, C2, close brackets. And let's actually add that to all 4 fields like so. And in doing so, you see we've now got this narrow little edge like that. And we can adjust the width of that just by adjusting this low and high here of this second brightness contrast. So we can use this new edge that we've created as a way of enhancing the look of this transition. I'll just move this out of the way a little bit. So let's now add a color corrector after this final merge like this, and let's take this custom tool out into the effect mask input of the color corrector. Make sure it goes into the effect mask, not the match reference, because that's not going to work. Effect mask input, and now if we adjust the color of this and let's crank up the gain, you see now we've got a colored edge to it. What I also want to do, I think, with this custom tool is to add some displacement, so it's not just this straight line. So after that custom tool, I'm going to add a 2D displace like this, and I'm also going to bring in a fast noise, and I'm going to pipe the fast noise into the foreground input of the displace. The displace, I just want to adjust that offset to be negative 0.5 like that. Let's come over to the fast noise. Let's set the contrast to 2 and let's set the scale to 75. And now if I zoom in a bit, we've got a nice grungy edge like that. So I can take my fast noise and just give it some seethe as well. So let's give it a seethe value of maybe 2. So that's going to really sort of boil nicely like that. Then what I want to do is I actually want to merge that fast noise over the top. So let's add a merge after that color corrector. Let's take the fast noise into the merge. And again, let's take the displace output into the effect mask input. And let's set the merge here to color dodge. And enable and disable that. It's giving us these nice little bright highlights there. Some extra kind of textural value and little sparks and so on. That's quite good. So then what I want to do is I want to add some glow. So I'm going to add a soft glow after that. Again, I want to take my displace and use that as the effect mask input, like that. Now, that's not really quite working the way I want it to. So what I want to do is add 2 more nodes, brightness, contrast, and after that, a blur. So I'm going to take my displace output and pipe it into the brightness contrast. I want to use the brightness contrast to clip the input values. So clip the black and the white and make sure to turn on alpha. And then I'm going to take my blur, set that value to something like 8, and then add that instead to the effect mask input of the soft glow. And you can see the result of that is it's spread out the glow around like that. And we can adjust these values, maybe just to add even more blue into there. So just to explain that brightness contrast, it's taking care of some of the black values of our mask, which we're heading down below 0. And that's why we needed to clip them. So you see if I disable and enable the black, that's the problem there. And that blur obviously is helping to spread out the area that we're using this soft glow with. And now we've got our effect and it looks like this, so pretty funky. Really quite simple to do. I should point out that if we come back to our RemapNormalise, as I said, we were using the X position, but we could actually choose the Y or the Z. So let's try the Y. And now you'll see we're getting this sort of front to back animation like that. And let's have a look at the Z position. So the Z is up, down like this. So you'll notice that in this case, the animation doesn't start until a lot later, and that's because of the actual values of that Z channel. So if I come back to 10 there, we can just adjust this far value there. Notice that if I adjust it, we can get it to start exactly where we want it to do, like that. And then the animation works a little bit better, but it actually doesn't complete. And again, it's because the near value, it needs to be adjusted. So adjust the near value till it all reveals like that. So depending on the direction, we need to reset those near and far values. So anyway, I hope that's been useful. I will of course put a link to the assets and to the macro in the description. Hope you have fun playing with this, and thanks for watching.